The morning of the convention, the clock was ticking down to doors open, but I was still fumbling with the satin ribbons of my cosplay. I'd spent nearly an hour staring at the character poster, trying to replicate that perfect gravity-defying bow, but my fingertips were slick with frustration and sweat. That's when Daniel leaned over. He picked up the fallen ends of the ribbon, his hands moving with a practiced, fluid grace. In seconds, he'd turned the limp fabric into a crisp, voluminous bow. I caught his reflection in the mirror, my eyebrows climbing. Since when did a software engineer learn how to do that? He straightened up, giving me that easy, boyish smile I'd loved for 7 years. Anything for you, right? I did a slow pirouette, admiring the silhouette, but Daniel frowned, tilting his head as he studied his handiwork. He muttered under his breath, "Wait, something still isn't right." I stopped mid-turn and looked up at him, my voice barely a whisper. "What's wrong with it?" Daniel's fingers twitched for a second, but he didn't answer. He just laughed it off, reaching out to ruffle my hair. "We've got to move, or you're going to miss the opening ceremony. Weren't you dying to get a photo with that guest artist?" I stayed rooted to the spot, my eyes dropping to his hand as he gripped the strap of my gear bag. "You've tied that bow for someone else before, haven't you?" The air in the room seemed to vanish for half a beat. The smile on his face didn't disappear, but it grew thin, brittle. I watched the slight movement of his throat as he swallowed before he bent down to pick up my prop staff. "What goes on in that head of yours, Joe?" he asked, his tone perfectly light. "Remember when I worked at that high-end gift wrap shop during grad school? I spent 8 hours a day tying bows for rich ladies' Christmas hampers. I could tie these in my sleep back then. It's muscle memory, that's all." It was a perfect explanation. Natural. Logical. I remembered that job. I used to bring him coffee while he worked behind a counter piled high with gold foil and velvet ribbon. He wasn't lying about the experience. But as I stared at the bow on my hip, a cold, nagging sensation settled in the pit of my stomach. Something was off, but I couldn't put a finger on the shape of the wrongness. I watched him carefully pack my bag, making sure to include the portable charger, the cooling mist, and even a small clip-on fan because I'd complained once about how hot the convention halls get. "All set," he said, checking his phone. "And I found that gourmet taco truck you wanted to try. It's parked right by the north exit. We can hit it on the way out." I forced a smile. That nameless anxiety felt silly in the face of such thoughtfulness. Maybe I was just projecting my own stress onto him. We made it just as the hall lights dimmed for the opening. This was the biggest fan expo the city had seen in years, and I'd been counting down the days for months. I was busy recording the stage on my phone when Daniel leaned in, whispering in my ear as the cosplayers began their walk. "That one's from Elden Ring, right? And that's the lead singer from Starry Skies." He didn't miss a single one. Even when an obscure NPC from a niche indie game appeared, Daniel leaned over and whispered the character's name and their specific backstory. The music was deafening, the crowd a sea of neon and joy, but my heart was sinking like a stone in deep water. Daniel is a classic tech guy. In our 7 years together, he treated my hobbies with a sort of polite, distant tolerance. Usually, if I tried to get him to watch an anime with me on the couch, he'd be snoring by the second episode. The unease I'd tried to bury came roaring back. People don't just wake up one day with a PhD in a subculture they've ignored for a decade. I lowered my phone, my hands shaking slightly. I tried to keep my voice casual, as if we were just chatting. "When did you become such an expert? I don't even recognize half of these." He rubbed the back of his neck, the tips of his ears turning a telltale shade of pink under the strobe lights. "You're always saying I don't take an interest in what you love," he said. "I've been following this one creator on YouTube who does deep dives into lore. I guess I'm a fast learner." I bit my lip. "That's a very thorough YouTuber.